Oh, we're live. Okay. Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 163. We're going to title this Krack Attack because, as you know, if you've heard anything in the last week or so, probably the last 2 weeks, is that WPA is broken and the world is going to end and nothing is safe and we don't know what we're going to do and all this other stuff. It's not, but that's what you heard. So, Tom, is the world ending?
Yes, absolutely. Take all of your computers, every single electronic device you have, throw it away immediately because the robots are uprising and they will kill us all.
So, well, before we get there, let's go to two quick things. So, the first thing, if you want to go to the website, donateyourtab.to. And if you go there, it's a website that crypto mines for your charity. There's four charities, the charity of choice in your browser. And this is more of a proof of concept than anything else, because in the news, we've heard about Showtime being the big one, but the new way to monetize without ads is to crypto mine in the background. And if you remember way back when they were looking for aliens, was it SETI at home and folding at home? You can donate your CPU cycles to help do extraterrestrial research or cancer or gene research. Here they're mining crypto for actual legit money. And you can read how they do it, and it goes to charity and everything else. So I personally think that this is a good idea. Not a good idea, but a good way to help out, especially if you're helping charity. But it could also be used for advertising to say, we're not going to give you ads, but we're gonna do some hashing in the background, which Tom reminded us is probably not the best idea.
Yeah, it's not a terrible idea. It's not the worst idea I've heard. And it certainly looks cleaner than putting a bunch of ads all over your site. But let's be real. Mining cryptocurrency in JavaScript in a browser tab on a CPU is really, really slow. And on top of that, it does use a whole lot of resources, right? You can control it. So on Donate Your Tab, they've got a little slider that makes your donated browser tab work harder or easier mining cryptocurrency. But you're not going to mine very fast. If you're using this as your main donation source, you're not really doing a whole lot. Maybe overall, like if you leave it on for weeks at a time, you might get 10 cents or something out of the CPU power you've donated. If you really wanted to donate to these charities, go dig out your wallet, go to the site, and donate directly. But it's a decent idea. The big issue I can see is with mobile devices. So when you're running something like cryptocurrency mining in a browser tab, it does use energy. It uses a lot of energy. As a matter of fact, I fired up Donate Your Tab, and my laptop's fans started spinning up. On your mobile device, your fans aren't going to start spinning up, hopefully. Most mobile phones don't have fans, but you will see your batteries start to tick down, and sometimes pretty rapidly. So that's really the big caveat, is you are using a whole lot of energy doing something that you may or may not support. With Donate Your Tab, it's really obvious, right? You go there to mine cryptocurrency to donate it. With Showtime and what they did, not so much.
I mean, I would like Google Contributor to have something like this where you can put it into your bank, like so many hashes get you a couple of cents that you can take some ads off. I don't know.
That would be interesting.
I mean, again, we're not talking. So when I heard about this 3 or 4 days ago, helping Puerto Rico is at $32.34. Right now it's at $32.65 a couple days later. So it's not making that much. But the idea is, in Showtime's case, well, if everyone who was watching whatever show it was, watching it, like if everyone was watching Game of Thrones and in the background it was doing hashes, it may actually like, yeah, it's going to be 30 or 40 hashes on a fully clocked out computer. But if we can get that to a lot and maybe actually you may be able to get some money from it. Like you said, it's not a big deal, but it is something.
Keep in mind that when you're actually doing Bitcoin hashing, when you're getting, like really set up for it in a professional manner, you are hitting hashes per second thousands of times higher than this, tens of thousands of times higher than this. I remember when I bought my first, giga hashing ASIC, and it was outdated, a couple weeks after I bought it because it was just outpaced by everyone else. Contributing your 10 to 50 hashes per second isn't gonna make you a whole lot of money. It's not gonna make Showtime a whole lot of money. It could waste a whole lot of your battery power just sitting on a website, which is kind of the thing that I'm worried about. If more sites start doing this, if this starts becoming, the default way to monetize a website, it's not going to be great for battery life.
And as I said pre-show, Chrome on OS 10 or Mac OS is not the greatest either with battery. And like even on my laptop, I have a very old laptop. It took me, I had to completely uninstall Chrome, which is not an easy thing. This is not dragged to the recycling bin. This is registry edits and everything else, because I would turn on Chrome within 3 seconds, the fan would spin up 100%. Even if I closed Chrome, it would still spin. Finally, I uninstalled, reinstalled. It seemed to be much better. But again, this is like a proof of concept. I like the idea, but like you said, it doesn't pay to waste all this electricity and everything else. If there was a way to obviously make this opt-in, be a different story. And also, by the way, Chrome and their new beta is going to disable anything that tries to, it's going to be a permission. Would you allow this site to mine cryptocurrency? uBlock Origin, AdBlock already blocking this. So be aware.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm sure we'll start to see more of this in the future. Frankly, I'm a little happy about it in kind of a weird way. It is a very cyberpunk way of monetizing websites, right? You go to the website and use some JavaScript to spin up your computer to start mining electronic hacker currency. Like that, just the concept of that is so cool. It is right out of like sci-fi novels. I love the idea. Unfortunately, the implementation on the end user side is a little less good.
So I threw this in right now, but we're done with that. The next thing was Google released this like super duper two-factor authentication about a week and a half ago. And everyone in the WhatsApp group, by the way, we have a WhatsApp group, tweet at us, we'll get you in, basically said this is too much for even for the average person. But it's not supposed to be for the average person. But basically it's a super duper lockdown way to control your Gmail, to the point that you have to have multiple factors with you at all times to get in.
Yeah, so basically what this does is it sets up two-factor authentication, but with a U2F key only. There is no SMS fallback. There is no Google Authenticator. It is strictly a hardware security device. On top of that, it'll make sure that there are no OAuth applications that can hook into your account. It'll make sure you cannot access your account through POP or IMAP. It is a full-service lockdown. And to get your account back, if you have to go through account recovery, let's say you destroy your two-factor authentication hardware token, it will take you a very long time to regain access to that account. So it's interesting. They said this was built specifically for people with the risk model of being targeted by state-level actors. Think, you're an activist in a government, or you're an activist and a government is targeting you, specifically trying to gain access to your email, your contacts, and figure out who you're talking to. It's good. I'm glad this is an option, but if you are an activist in a hostile country, maybe email isn't the best way to communicate. I mean, I know you can layer, PGP on top of it, but maybe choose something a bit more secure and built for this, by default, like Signal, or, you might want to access, if you have to do email, go to Google over Tor, or there are other options here if you are in that scenario. But it's a good thing that it's an option. It's nice. It's not for everyone, and I'm not recommending anyone go out and do this. It can cause pretty I don't want to say harm, but pretty big changes and hassles to your Google account. So do it only if you really, 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 really need to.
Basically,
I haven't done this.
No, yeah, no, I was gonna say this is for like John Podesta of the Hillary campaign. This is for people who are actively concerned about being hacked, whether it's a politician or somebody else, or a CEO of a company. If you have state level secrets, this is what it's for. You need, like you said, nothing leaves the official Google apps, so you cannot use Mail on iOS. You cannot use Calendar on iOS. Everything is completely siloed. You need these specific keys that you have to, I mean, the Yubico and the U2F work, but there's another Bluetooth one that you have to buy. And they basically turn off passwords or a very strong password. Then you need all these other things. This is not to give a whole bunch of people. This is for you and you only, and it does require a lot of work. And like you said, if you get locked out, this is not a make a phone call. This is probably send us an actual letter, certified mail through this, verifying all this information. This is not something. So we've told people, you know what? The best thing you can do is go into Google's privacy settings or security settings and turn off the SMS code. Turn on two-factor authentication. Turn off SMS codes, and you're probably, for the most part, fine.
Yeah, I think that's all that's going to be required for the average person. Have a good, strong, unique password just for your Google account. Make sure your password manager has randomly generated one for you. Make sure it's saved. And turn on two-factor authentication. The Google Authenticator app is great. Google's newest way of doing two-factor authentication, at least if you have an Android phone, is by popping up a message that says, hey, are you trying to log into your Google account right now? And it's a yes or no click. I think that's really easy. I like it, but I have seen in the past where users have inadvertently given other people access to their account through other similar systems. So not foolproof, but it is easier to set up two-factor authentication without having to teach someone about codes or going to a different app or typing in some random numbers. Just teaching them, hey, when you're logging in, hit yes. And if you're not logging in, hit no. I know it's helped members of my family actually get onboarded with two-factor authentication way easier than anything else has.
Again, I think Google makes it as easy as possible to set up two-factor, and it's one of those that will help. But remember, if you lose a two-factor, it is very difficult to get your account back. So we recommend sitting there, thinking about what you're doing. Just don't randomly turn stuff on. Thinking about what you're doing, practice with it, have a fallback, and then when you're finally ready to take the plunge, then go for it. So I have no more on that. I think it's a good next step, but not for the average person. The third thing we wanted to talk about is if you I'm calling it iOS reprompts, but if you go back to the days of Windows Vista, we all remember the UAC, the Universal Access Control. Anytime you did something, it would pop up and say, would you like to continue? Would you like to continue? Would you like to continue? Well, iOS is having that sort of issue where you're getting all these reprompts, but we don't know when they happen. Like, we don't know what determines a reprompt, what doesn't. So bad actors are deciding, you know what, we can post a pop-up in our ad, in our application, that prompts the user that looks exactly like the system screen. It's completely malicious, and then they grab your iCloud credentials, which is a problem because we don't know when. I don't know when you need Apple's two-factor authentication. I've never had to enter it in, but yet I have it turned on, and it says I can do it, but apparently Find My iPhone doesn't work with it, but some other things do, and we just don't know. But I do get prompted all the time to re-enter my iCloud password, so I don't know what's legit and what's not legit at this point.
So I'm not entirely familiar with this particular problem, mostly because I don't have any iOS devices. But when it pops up the prompt, is there anything like identifying about it? 'Cause like with a phishing site, you can look at the URL bar and say, on most browsers anyway, and say, oh, you know, it's Google A12379.com. apparently I shouldn't put my Google password into that site because it's not google.com. Is there anything kind of identifying or differentiating about the official pop-up versus something that an malicious app would pop up?
You know what it is? I think we're permissioned out. So between the permissions of allowing me to do this and all these other things like running out of iCloud space, always hitting no and everything else, we've just been accustomed just to hitting cancel or just doing whatever it says to move on. So I'm sure there's ways to tell this apart. Again, I don't have an iPhone. I have an iPad that I don't use all that much with very few apps, but I haven't seen it, but I can see this being a thing and fooling a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, the draw over top of other apps is a really, really nice feature. It is fantastic, especially for messaging, for password managers. It's got so many little things that are great, but with that comes some pretty huge security liabilities. You can have a pop-up that if the user experience isn't quite right, and then you just sent me this picture, but if the user experience isn't quite right, if you haven't built security into this feature from the ground up, you could have another app draw on top of something else that looks like it came from the app you're already in, and you could get phished that way. Imagine if you're in a banking app and another app pops up this thing. Oh, hey, just enter your account numbers here. Don't worry about it. We just need to verify your account. Like, that's a potentially huge issue. So in this screenshot that you sent, there's a random system pop-up and a picture of a phishing pop-up in an app or a game. And these are identical.
They are. So the permission that's being leveraged is draw upon other apps. So there's two famous cases here. One is Facebook Messenger. So if you have Facebook Messenger, it's the bubbles on top, which I absolutely love. I'm a bubble lover of Facebook Messenger. With that said, I've moved to Facebook Lite. So if you don't want animated emoji and stickers and all this other stuff, Facebook Lite on Android is where it's at. Anyway, LastPass is the other, where LastPass or 1Password has a floating thing to allow you to autofill apps. But if you grant permission to some of these apps to overlay, this is what you could get. And unfortunately, they look identical. And I'm sure there's some color gradient that I don't know, but I can't tell the difference.
If your security model relies on users telling apart a very particular shade of a color gradient, your security model has failed. So this looks completely identical to me. I would not be able to tell that I was being phished at all. I'm looking for it, right? I know I'm being phished. I'm looking for the differences in these pictures, and I don't see it. There is no difference here. So yeah, this could start to be a big problem. Now, Apple does, theoretically inspect all the apps that come through their doors. Could they look out for this? Yeah, maybe. Could you build something into the app that says, "Hey, wait for like 3 months and then go ahead and pop this up on someone's screen"? Yeah, you could do that. You could absolutely hide this from Apple. I can only predict that this will be a bigger problem going forward. Drawing over top of other apps should be one of those permissions that you look at, and unless you know exactly what it's doing and it's absolutely required, do not install the app that requests that.
Well, I mean, or find the feature, because like we said, Facebook does it and LastPass does it. I'm sure the other password apps do it in some capacity, but make sure you go there and not check the permissions, but check that setting to either ask you when they want to do it or whatever else. Now, we're both on Android. I don't think we have this issue. We don't have to type in our Google password. But
we don't.
I don't think we have to do that. So, again, it's one of those things that the bad guys are finding ways that are leveraging. Just get me past whatever this dialog box is, and we can now ask for your iCloud account just because people are used to doing that. So that's it for for these topics. But do you want to talk about Krack?
Yes. So any device that has a Wi-Fi radio, go ahead and just throw it out right now. Just toss it right in the trash. Okay, that's probably a little extreme.
You know what? Wait, if it's 5 years old or whatever, 3 years old maybe, anything that's 3 years or older, throw it out anyway. It probably should be updated.
So yes, there are some serious weaknesses in WPA2. And it's not like a cracking a crypto thing. It's
It deals with the
kind of
handshake.
it's a handshake key replacement attack, and this is not on an implementation level, which means it's not like, oh well, Cisco messed this up when they put it in their firmware, or Google made this bad mistake in their driver, like we've seen with other issues. This is a protocol specification level attack. They weren't quite careful enough in their wording, so when programmers implemented their wording in code, this bug surfaced. Now, the good news is there is a fix, and there's plenty of fixes, and you don't have to do anything about it. Even if your router at home is super, super old and it's never going to see a security update, the protections can be implemented all client side. So make sure you run your updates. You know, when you get that pop-up that says, hey, update to iOS, whatever, install that. When you get the pop-up that says, hey, Android needs to restart to do system updates, restart your machine. When Windows yells at you and says, hey, we're going to go ahead and reboot now, don't worry about it. You're getting these security updates. It's a great thing. Chromebooks have been updated. I know Windows got updated. Most major Linux distributions have already been updated. Android, I believe, has got fixes out for it.
It's probably in their next patch, whatever it is.
Yeah, like, because this can be solved client side, the severity of these vulnerabilities is extremely minimized. Patch your stuff, stay up to date, you'll be fine. It does require, it's not like on the level of a mass, remote code execution where someone can attack you halfway across the world. This is a Wi-Fi level attack, which means someone's got to be in the vicinity, targeting people around the area. So it does really minimize the severity of this. Not to discount it. This is fantastic research. This is great research. It's perfect. It was responsibly disclosed. The white paper is well written. I love this research. It's a great vulnerability. And the best part about it is we do have fixes, and they're fairly easy to implement. On the access point side, if you've got an old wireless router, go out to the manufacturer site, see if they've got firmware available, because this is such an easy patch from their side. Go ahead and see if something's available. Most often is probably a little strong, but you'd be surprised at how many things are being patched right now.
So a couple things that I don't know if you explicitly said. This doesn't affect routers as much as it affects devices that access the routers. The routers send data. This is for people trying to access data. So your routers actually are not as vulnerable as you think. The ones that actually are vulnerable are the extenders. So if you have an Eero or a Google Wi-Fi or one of those that re-strengthens the signal, the router is acting as both as a router and an access point or an accessor to have this problem. So your phones, like we said, are already updated. And the good news is this doesn't break WPA2. So people initially were coming out saying, do we need WPA3? What do we need? And the answer is no, WPA2 is fine. Here's the line of code to update it. The other news is that these people disclosed this like 9 months ago. So they told them that we're going to speak at this specific conference coming up. So they gave it to the manufacturers and embargoed them and saying, look, we're trying to give this to you ahead of time. We want to talk about it. Just please wait till we announce it before you go shipping patches. And it looks like it hasn't been exploited, which is a good thing. Obviously, that's a good thing. So it's let's hope that people do get updated.
Yeah. So run your updates. Keep on top of those. Let's call out this guy. He did great work. I'm gonna totally butcher your name, and I totally apologize. Massey Van Hoof. You can go to crackattacks.com, KRACKATTACKS.com for all the fantastic research. Great white paper, great front page that explains the attacks in a simple manner. And stuff's getting fixed. I'm getting patches all the time. I just installed a brand new FreeBSD virtual machine, ran FreeBSD update, and sure enough, WPA supplicant got updated. So again, not an encryption level attack. We don't need WPA 3. Just run your updates and you'll be good. This is, the kind of vulnerability I love to see. Really, really good work.
So while you're talking, I'm looking. Verizon has not issued any updates to their routers. I mean, we figured that exactly is the case, and they're claiming what I claim. Well, the router doesn't have the issue. Again, this is where the IoT devices. Check all your IoT devices for updates. And this is where we tell you to stay away from no-name companies that just offer a really cheap price, because unfortunately, they're probably not going to fix this. The good news is you have to be local. You have to be within 30 yards of the Wi-Fi network to actually exploit this. So as we're talking, I'm checking.
Yeah.
Verizon says no. Hue bulbs don't run on Wi-Fi; they run on Zigbee. So that's another good thing to mention. All your IoT things that run on Zigbee is a different protocol, so this doesn't affect it in the way we're discussing.
So that is one good thing to point out. IoT devices, especially older no-name IoT devices, where you pull it out of a box and you never update it, that do connect over Wi-Fi, those probably aren't going to be patched. And if they're sending data in the clear, if they're not using HTTPS anywhere, then yeah, people could absolutely intercept that data. Now, what they can do with it depends on what vulnerabilities it's susceptible to, and there's a lot of variables there we can't say for sure for any single device without looking at it. But there are manufacturers who are updating the routers. So if you can take care of this at the access point or router level, then you kind of nip the problem in the bud. It's not fully protected, but I'd say you're most of the way there.
My Ubiquity access point did get, in a very scary methodology, did get fixed. I opened up the client. It said, we have an update. Would you like to do it? I followed all the directions, and then the access point turned off. 10 minutes later, it's still off. And then cannot resolve server. So now I'm getting worried. I do it again. And after about an hour, it did work. So I guess everyone was trying to update at the exact same time. So it took them forever to download it, because the update was not a downloadable file. It was go to this website and pull it. But
yeah, so mine, I updated a few days after all of this broke. Mine was down and up, and it took about 10 minutes.
So, but again, it was a good reason to go check and everything else. Again, hopefully they backtrack all these patches. Hopefully Google has a way through Play Services to try and fix this, because I'm nervous about all the Android phones that won't be getting updates.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of a big issue. Luckily, it's not a remote code exploit. It is something where someone's got to be in your local area to affect you. But still, it's not the kind of vulnerability you want to have laying around on your devices, especially a phone that you use every day. And if you're carrying a really old phone that's not seeing security updates, maybe it's time to upgrade. Maybe it's time to look at Android, phone manufacturers and say, okay, who's going to give me security updates, and who can I trust to give me security updates for the longest period of time?
So, look, I just got a Pixel 2 XL. I'm right now really happy with it. I do know about all the screen issues, so I am very nervous, but I don't know. It's Android. Hopefully a lot more companies with Oreo get on board with the way that they're trying to update, and Google's forcing them to, and everything else, but we'll see. Anyway, we're out of time. Just some other things. I'm going away for a week or two, so hopefully we'll have an episode next week, but the week after that definitely won't be one. So if you don't hear from us from 2 weeks, again, you're welcome to join the WhatsApp group, but we are coming back. We're not going anywhere. It's just we've all been busy for the last couple weeks. So I will end with there. And Tom, I guess we'll see you hopefully next week. If not, it'll be a couple weeks.
All right. I'll be around.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
See you, everyone.